retains the data for you.
And when it's recording, which way is it viewing?
It's, I don't know what you call that, but it's viewing the road in front of you as if you were just holding the camera, except it's mounted.
So as if the driver was holding it up and recording as
Right,
he drove?
it's mounted behind the rear view mirror.
Okay. Now, you said it's about this big, and I know you gestured, so 4 by 6 inches, a deck of cards, a little bit bigger?
Yeah, a little bigger than a deck of cards, thicker than that, maybe 2 decks of cards on top of each other.
Okay, and did he like this gift?
He loved it, and it was such a perfect gift for him that my ex-husband, his father, actually bought him one too, not realizing I had bought him.
Oh.
He's just really super techie, electronic type kid, so he loved it.
And in fact, is Logan out of state in school right now?
Yes, he is.
Okay. So did it go in the car right away in December?
Probably Christmas Day, yeah.
Okay. And was it always installed in the car as far as you know?
Yes, and as I said, it automatically, you don't have to, I actually have the same camera in my car that I installed last year, and yeah, it just automatically turns on and off, and you don't even know it's there really, because it's behind the mirror, you don't even see it.
Okay. Do you know, was the audio working on it?
No, he had disabled that, as did I. It's an option to record, and I think it's just inside the car.
Okay.
And he had disabled that option.
So,
Didn't want me to hear his conversations.
I beg your pardon?
I said he probably didn't want me to hear his phone conversations.
okay. So, with respect to this overnight stay at the De Pere High School, and this is in East De Pere, that high school, correct? Approximately how far from your home is the high school?
2 miles or less.
To the most direct route from your home to the high school, would you take Berkeley?
Yes.
Did you wait up for him to find out what time he got home?
No, because the event was scheduled to go till 6 a.m. and both of my boys are like beyond, their morals are outstanding. I never have ever worried about them, so I could not stay up till 6. No.
Sure. So you just stay awake the whole time, but you kind of keep an ear toward the
Yeah,
door?
oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Especially since they were both in the car. Yeah.
Okay. So did you make a note of when they actually pulled back into the garage?
Yeah, I recall, I woke up because we always hear the garage door. I also have 2 dogs, little dogs who are barkers. And so I recall the clock because I remember thinking they didn't quite make it. Like they said that they were going to stay all night.
And what time do you think it was then?
It was about 5:45.
So it's about 5:45 a.m. now on May 21st, Saturday morning. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And I indicated the garage. I should have asked, where does this car get parked?
In the garage.
Okay. So did the garage actually go up the garage door and they came in?
Yep.
Okay. Did you get up and greet them at 5:45, or you just were where they were?
Again, I wasn't worried at all about checking in with them. I figured if there was a problem, they would come to me.
Okay. So that would be May 21st. On May 25th of 2016, do you recall if you were watching any news reports with respect to things that had taken place?
Yes, we had seen whatever local news station, we had been watching that, yes.
And what did you become aware of?
Well, as I was aware that there was events, regarding this incident in the neighborhood, it occurred to me that Logan might have driven that way when he came home.
Now, you said of this incident, did you become aware there had been a homicide?
Yes.
Okay. And you realized that your son's vehicle may have gone through the areas that were of interest?
Correct.
Did you ask him anything at that time?
Well, yes, and actually I had forgotten about the dash cam, and I just said, did you go, which way did you come out? Because there's an alternate route that's a little bit farther. And then he told me that he came up Berkeley, and I said, did you happen
I'm sorry, he came up what?
That he told me that he came up Berkeley, and I said, did you happen to see anything unusual or whatever? And he said no, and he was, my kids are very honest. He said, honestly, Mom, he said, I was so tired, I don't recall seeing anything. I was just trying to get home, and Caden was already sleeping, and then he's the one who said, well, I do have my dash cam, and then the light bulb went off.
Did you then do anything?
Yes, we went out to the car and I brought my laptop and Logan sat in the driver's seat and me in the passenger seat, and you just connect it with a little dongle type device. So connected it from my laptop to the dash cam, and then you can view the video like on, you can, you know, go forward and back and watch the video.
Did you watch it with Logan at that point in time?
Yes.
And what were you able to view?
I saw him, you know, dropping his girlfriend off, and you see him driving down the road, and we didn't see anything alarming from my perspective, but my husband and I are pretty observant people. I just, because I've lived in the neighborhood going on 11 years, we're just kind of familiar with who normally has their garage door open, who doesn't, you know, just kind of general awareness issues. And so I could see as the car's coming around the corner, I could see that the garage door was open at the house in question, at Doug's house. And I don't recall ever seeing that garage door open before. And as you drive past, it has a wide enough view that you could see there was only one car in the garage. And I thought, well, that might be of value to someone. There wasn't anything from my perspective that was alarming, but I thought it might be of value to someone. So then it's like,
And it did show Berkeley Road, correct?
yep, you can clearly see him turning the corner, driving down the road. You see it, and there was a couple, I think he passed by a couple joggers. I thought, well, you know, yeah, maybe they need to talk to those people, so I thought it might be of value.
Now, is there time indicators on this video footage that you're watching?
Yes, it has a date and time stamp on it.
Okay, and was it accurate?
It was not accurate because there's a setting, and you know, I got the same camera for Christmas, this previous Christmas, and I set mine up, and yeah, there's a setting on there where you can choose to activate the daylight savings time or not, and he did not have that. So he noted that the night on the police report that it was an hour. So whereas in real time it was 5:45-ish, the dash cam would show 4:45 because of the daylight savings time.
Right, and you being aware of when he came home, that corroborates the timing.
Correct, yes, because I distinctly remember thinking, oh, they must have given the time and the transportation time allotted. I thought, oh, they made it till 5:30. They didn't quite make it like they were bragging they would make it till 6.
Okay. So did you contact anyone when you realized you had footage of the Berkeley Street?
Yes, we called the non-emergency number for, I believe it was the county. And
Was that also on May 25th?
yes.
It's the same time?
That night, yep.
Did they come out right away?
What happened was I called them, and whomever we spoke with, we said that we would put it on a flash drive, and that they were going to come to my husband's work the next day and retrieve it. And then when we hung up, it was maybe 15 minutes later when they called back and said, we're going to send someone tonight. And then they came over, maybe it was a half hour later. So maybe it was 10:30-ish when someone came to retrieve it and take the statement.
Okay. And they took a statement from your son, is that correct?
Correct.
But you all talked to them and...
Correct, yeah, we were all there. Yes, my husband and my 2 children and I were there.
And then your family actually then provided that flash drive with the video to the sheriff's department?
Correct, yeah, we handed it over to that officer, yes.
I don't have any further questions, thank you.
Okay.
Any cross-examination?
No, thank you, Judge.
Ms. Williams, thank you. You may step down,
I'd ask that you be excused, please.
and she is excused. Any objection? No. All right. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Next witness.
State calls Monica Janke.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name and spell your last name.
Monica Janke, Janke.
Whenever the state's ready.
Ms. Janke, how were you employed?
I was employed with the Brown County Sheriff's Office.
I use the past tense. Are you still employed with the sheriff's office?
I retired January 26th after 30 years.
So you were with the sheriff's office for 30 years?
I was.
And were you working as a sheriff's officer on May 21st of 2016? Excuse me, May 23rd of 2016?
Yes.
Now, what was your position at that time?
I was a detective sergeant.
And how long had you been in the detective unit?
Approximately 7 years.
And what was the nature of your assignment on May 23rd, 2016, relative to the investigation of the death of Nicole Vanderheiden?
Captain Conrath advised Sergeant Tilley and I that there had been a call from 2326 Berkeley Road, and the homeowner there reported finding a large amount of blood in his front yard and on the road in front of his residence.
Did you respond to that scene?
Yes.
What was your role in processing that scene?
I was the evidence custodian, evidence technician, so I assisted in processing and then collected all the evidence.
Was it your responsibility to create a list and to maintain custody of that evidence until it was admitted at the Brown County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And who assisted you in that?
Sergeant Chris Amron, who was in DTF, or who is still in DTF, and Sergeant Tilley.
DTF was the Drug Task Force?
Yes.
You know about what time you were dispatched to 2326 Berkeley?
The captain advised us at approximately 5:20, and I believe we arrived at about 5:45 p.m.
What did you observe upon your arrival?
We first spoke with Matthew Peterson, and he told us kind of the area that we were looking at, and then we went to that area in the roadway and found what looked like a large amount of blood in several different areas on the roadway, on the curb, and on the gutter.
Do you recall what the weather was like that day?
Yes, it was muggy, hot, and the wind started picking up when we were there. And there was some weather moving in. As I recall, we were concerned that it was going to rain.
What did you do to then process the scene?
We first marked the items that we were interested in collecting. Actually, let me back up. Prior to that, I took a video of the scene before we put the markers out so that we wouldn't lose any of the evidence, or so that I would be able to capture what we were looking at just in case something should happen with the weather. Then when Sergeant Amron arrived there, we started putting out the flags to mark each individual item. And then after that, we had called recon in so that they could reconstruct, take photographs and measurements. And then once they had their data collected, we started collecting our evidence. So we started taking the wet and dry swabs of the brownish dried substance that was consistent with blood. And then we started picking up other evidentiary, interesting evidentiary items as well.
I'll kind of work you through this bit by bit. The first thing that you did was video the area prior to putting the flags down.
Yes,
Prior to today, have you seen a copy of the video that you took that day?
yes,
Were you the person filming?
yes.
Your Honor, I would like to mark the video and show it. We will show it with the audio off. I know there isn't a lot of audio and it's actually pretty windy. Conceivably what's on the audio would be hearsay.
This whole thing, by an attorney Zucker to counsel, any objection to just the video itself being played?
No.
I would move 69 into evidence then and ask that we be allowed to publish it.
And subject to cross, any objection?
No, Judge, thank you.
Exhibit 69 is received.
reconstruction of the video you took on May 23rd of 2016?
Yes,
And the first home that was depicted in the video that we just watched, whose house was that?
that was Mr. Peterson's house.
In the home where we ended the video, which home were you looking at? in
Mr.
that?
Dietry's house.
You indicated that the reconstruction unit was called out to the scene. Are they the group that actually took photographs?
Yes,
Have you had an opportunity to see their photographs as part of your work on this case?
I have.
And you also marked that you, or indicated that you marked items of evidentiary value with flags. Can you describe what that is and why you do that?
The flags are used to assist the recon team in order that they can take their photographs. So we mark items that we believe are of interest, and then they can photograph them, and then they also do measurements using those flags. It also helps us to identify what we want to collect.
So when you later create a list of the evidence that you've seized, you can reference the flags that you put out by the scene?
That's correct.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Sergeant Janke, while the exhibits are being marked, can you tell the jury generally what types of evidentiary items you located on the scene in front of 2326 Berkeley?
We located a number of pieces of hair, both individual pieces of hair that were stuck in dried brownish red substance that was consistent with blood. We located clumps of hair in the front lawn that were stuck in the grass that were very close to the roadway. And we located bobby pins or hairpins and 2 pieces of wiring that were kind of coated wiring. 2 different pieces that appeared to be the same kind of wire that maybe had been split in 2.
Sergeant Janke, I'm showing you what has been previously marked as exhibit number 23. Does that item look familiar to you?
Yes, that's the wire that was one of the pieces of wire that was located in the roadway.
Do you know where those items were located when you arrived on scene?
Where they were located?
Where? In reference to the yard or the curb, or where were they located on scene?
Oh, this was not on the curb, but it was in the roadway, sort of in the gutter area. So there was one piece that was on the grass and one piece that was in the road.
And is that particular piece of evidence marked so that you would know where that one came from as
Yes.
opposed to?
This one was in the roadway.
And that's based on the documentation done by the Berkeley Sheriff's Office?
Yes, by me.
And Sergeant Janke, I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 79. Can you identify what that item is?
This was the same type of wire, and it was located in the front yard. This was the piece that was in the grass. It was nearby this piece.
I'm not asking you to give necessarily an expert opinion on this issue, but did it appear to you that both of those items seem to be the same, roughly of the same wire, same port?
I thought they were the same, and I thought they had probably been cut in half when the lawnmower hit them.
Their appearance was consistent with that, both had frayed edges.
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as exhibits 70 through 78. I'd like you to look at those as a group, and then I'll ask you about them. Sergeant Janke, I know you indicated you did not take photographs, but do those photographs accurately depict what you observed on scene at 2326 Berkeley Road on May 23rd, 2016?
Yes.
I would call your attention, I guess I would move for admission of those exhibits at this time, and I would request permission to publish them using the projector.
70 through 78 are all photographs.
Correct.
Any objection subject to cross of exhibits 70 through 78?
No, Judge.
70 through 78 inclusive are received. They can be published at this time.
While we're moving exhibits, I would actually move for the omission of 79 as well at this time.
Subject to recross any, or cross any objection. All right. The video marked as exhibit 69 is received. 79. 79, the video of what it purports to be bloodstains in the street. In a,
That was 69. I don't believe I moved for that either, so I moved for 69 and 79. 69 being the video, 79 being the second section of court.
okay, 69 is the video. That has not been objected to. That's received. 79, the portion of the cord that was found in the grass. Any objection to that subject to cross?
No, Judge.
79 is received.
Drawing your attention specifically to Exhibit 70, can you indicate what is observed on that exhibit?
This is Berkeley Road, and we're standing west of the residence, looking eastbound. So to kind of orient, Doug Dietrich's house is on the left, and then Matthew Peterson's house is on the right.
You know, it's sort of difficult to see on the photograph, but are your flags set up in the roadway at that time?
It appears they are, yes.
In fact, there's what appears to be a piece of cardboard. Could you describe what that is?
The cardboard I used to cover that large area, that large round area of dried brownish red substance. There was hair in that exhibit, and we wanted to make sure, because the wind was picking up, I wanted to make sure that nothing was going to blow away before we had a chance to collect it. So I took a box top, and that's what that white piece is on the bottom, and then covered it up with the tackle box because the box top was going to blow away.
And actually, I think if we draw your attention to Exhibit 71, perhaps there'll be a better look at that. Can you describe what's depicted in Exhibit 71?
Those are all the items that we collected. And those are the flags at the items that we were interested in having photographed, and then doing the collection afterward.
That depicts accurately the location of the items that you believed had evidentiary value, which were subsequently photographed and collected.
Yes.
And Exhibit number 72, could you describe what's depicted in that photograph?
So this would be the eastmost area of collection. So if you're looking at the Peterson house, this would be the furthest to the left, and then we would move left to right. So number 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 were what we thought, in my opinion, was dried blood, reddish brown substance. Number 3 was a bobby pin that was in the road. Number 4 was the piece of wire. And then 5 was more of the reddish-brown substance on the curb.
And you mentioned that flag 3 was a bobby pin in the road. Is that depicted in Exhibit 73?
Yes.
And Exhibit 74, what's depicted in that photograph?
Oh, that's hair. That's tangled into the grass. A clump of light-colored hair.
And you indicated, I believe, in your earlier testimony that you located clumps of hair like that at several points throughout the lawn,
Yes,
and also observed hair on the roadway.
yes.
Direct your attention to Exhibit 75. What is depicted in that exhibit?
That's what was under that box top. So that's a round area of kind of dried blood. And I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but there's also hair that's stuck in that blood.
It also appears that there are some grass clippings in that area, is that right?
That's correct.
And Mr. Peterson had indicated to you that he had cut his lawn on the 21st?
Correct. In the morning.
It's right in front of the curb.
And is that area directly in front of the curb? Is that the curbing that we see on the top of the photograph?
Yes.
And direct your attention to Exhibit 76. Can you describe what is depicted in that exhibit?
More dried blood and the piece of wire that was found in the gutter.
And direct your attention to Exhibit 77.
That's the piece of wire that was, it's actually nearby the wire in the roadway, but that's in the front lawn, close to the road.
And I'll direct your attention also to Exhibit 78. You know what's depicted in that?
17, 18, and 19, we've put down at spots in the roadway that we just wanted to check, but we didn't end up collecting anything from there. It appeared later when we looked at those items that they were just probably made by vehicle, like fluids or something. They didn't appear to have any evidentiary value, so we discounted them later.
And do you know if those were actually subsequently tested by another agency for the presumptive presence of blood?
Not that I'm aware of. We didn't collect any swabs from those 3 areas.
After you processed the scene in front of Mr. Peterson's residence on the 23rd, did you engage in any further activity in this investigation that night?
Yes.
And what did you do?
Lieutenant Valley advised myself and Sergeant Tilley that a search warrant had been secured for 2329, the Dietrich's residence. And so we were asked to suit up in Tyvek suits and enter the residence just to clear it, to make sure nobody else was in the residence.
So you were clearing the residence for people. It was not your role to search the residence at that time?
That's correct. It was just a search to make sure that everything was secure.
And did you enter the residence on the 23rd?
We did.
You know about what time you went in?
I don't recall. We had completed the collection of the evidence at the roadside, and we had been there for several hours, so it was after dark, but I don't recall the exact time. I know somebody had documented the time that we entered.
When you entered the residence, was there anyone present?
I'm sorry?
When you entered the residence, was there anyone present?
No.
Did you note anything of evidentiary value on your sweep through the residence?
No,
Did you smell anything when you were in the residence?
I did. I smelled strong cleaning solution.
Did you do any further investigation into that? Are you aware of what that's from?
No, I didn't look into it any further. It was spring, and I thought spring cleaning.
Did it have a particular, or were you able to distinguish a smell at all?
It smelled like scented cleaning solution. It didn't smell like bleach. Bleach gives me a headache, and I can I have a very sensitive nose for that. It wasn't bleach, it was cleaning solution.
After you cleared the residence, did you do anything further on scene that night?
After I secured that residence and Sergeant Tilley and I left, I collected some items that had been marked in the front yard of Dietrich's residence.
Were you involved in the search of the front yard of the residence?
I was not. I just picked up the items that had been marked.
So other officers had searched Mr. Dietrich's yard looking for items of evidentiary value,
Yes,
and you were responsible for the collection of those items of evidence?
correct.
Did you, in any of the items that you collected, was any of that evidence blood-related?
No,
Do you recall what types of items of evidentiary value were taken?
there was a small piece of carpeting remnant, and then there were some cigarette butts.
Did you notice any blood on Mr. Dietrich's lawn while you were present? Did you notice any blood in his driveway?
No,
Did you see any blood evidence in the residence?
no,
In the street, you mentioned that you were responsible for evidence collection. Do you know if swabs were taken of the suspected blood on the street?
yes, at each flag.
Were you responsible for the collection of those swabs?
Sergeant Amron actually took the wet and dry swabs, and then I completed the box, the information on the box that held the swabs. So then he placed the swabs in the box, and I maintained custody from there.
Did you observe Sergeant Amron taking those swabs?
I did.
And was he following Sheriff's Department protocol in terms of the collection of those items?
He was.
He was wearing gloves?
Oh, yes.
The following day, on May 24th of 2016, were you further involved in this investigation?
Yes.
And what was your involvement?
I was advised by DTF agent Olmsted that he had secured a search warrant for a DNA collection or a buccal swab collection from Mr. Dietrich. So we reported to collect that.
And where did you report to collect that?
Brown County Jail.
And did you meet with Mr. Dietrich?
Yes,
And did you indicate to him that you had a warrant for his buccal swab?
I did.
And were you able to observe Mr. Dietrich's demeanor at that time?
Yes.
Did you describe it?
He was crying, his face was red, his eyes were puffy, and he appeared very sad.
Was Mr. Dietrich cooperative with the collection of the swab?
Completely.
At some point in August of 2016, were you involved in the collection of some evidence from the Green Bay Police Department that would be transported to the Brown County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And what were you asked to do at that time?
I was asked to pick up a disk that contained a data download of George Burch's phone from Green Bay Police Department.
And did you do that?
I did.
And did you bring it back to the Brown County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Who did you provide it to there?
Sergeant Slinger.
Were you also involved in attempting to locate information regarding a 1999 Chevy S10 Blazer that had belonged to Linda Clayton?
Yes.
What was your involvement in attempting to locate information in that regard?
Sergeant Slinger had asked me to see if I could determine what happened to that vehicle after it had been towed from the scene. I did some background and discovered through Green Bay Police Department reports that Mr. Jackson, Edward Jackson, I believe his last name is, that's Linda's fiance. He had contacted the Green Bay Police Department on June 8th of 2016, about 7:30 a.m., and indicated the vehicle was not in the driveway, Linda's vehicle, and that was the 1999 Chevy.
And I won't ask you for specifics of the nature of the incident involving that vehicle. We'll get into that through the officers directly involved in that. After the incident was over, were you aware of where the vehicle was taken or what had been done with the vehicle?
It had been towed from the scene to Smitty's Salvage, or Smitty's on Velp Avenue, and I contacted Smitty's. They advised me that the vehicle had been salvaged, and so they sent it to, I'm sorry, it would have been Heavy Duty that towed it from the scene, and then they sent it to Smitty's. And then Smitty's had sent it to B&B Metals in Newton, Wisconsin, and then it was shredded.
So your purpose in attempting to locate the vehicle was what?
To attempt to see if we could search it or find any evidence in it.
And you learned that subsequently it had been destroyed.
I contacted B&B and they said there was no way after it was shredded to determine where the pieces had gone.
Thank you. No further questions at this time.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. So I want to get this right. It's Detective Sergeant Janke, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Retired.
Retired in January of this year?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you said you had 30-plus years of experience in law enforcement at that point?
30.
30 years of law enforcement experience. Okay. I'm not that familiar with rankings either in law enforcement or in the military. So you're a detective sergeant. Are those two separate roles, detective and sergeant?
Yes.
What does a detective do?
Detective investigates crimes.
Okay. And then, so what does the sergeant status mean?
You can reach the status of sergeant in the Brown County Sheriff's Office and work in the investigative division, the patrol division. There are specialty sergeant positions. So it just depends on how you do in testing. You have to kind of earn a position as a detective.
Okay, so over your career, you had earned that position as being a detective sergeant.
I tested and earned my rank.
Okay, so you obviously have lots of experience.
7 years in the investigative unit.
So your involvement in this case, it's safe to say it wasn't your first investigation.
No.
You've probably done more investigations than you can count over the course of your career.
I've done quite a few.
Okay. And as you indicated, you took tests and you've been well trained as far as how to be a investigator or a detective. Over your career, you've received lots of training, you've had lots of experience investigating various crimes or scenes.
Yes.
You're well trained when investigating on what types of evidence to look for.
I've received training in evidence, yes.
So you know what, when you are dispatched to a scene, you're given some basic information, and then you're able to glean a sense of what types of evidence you should be looking for based on the information you'd received.
I would say that's accurate.
Okay.
That's the beginning of the investigation, but you develop a sense of what evidence you're going to collect based on interviews as well.
Okay.
So it's not just the primary information
Sure.
that you're...
So, for example, on May 23rd, when you were dispatched to Berkeley Road, you had been given some, I guess, general information about why you were going to that scene.
Yes.
And what was that information again?
The homeowner had reported that there were some suspicious areas of blood in his front yard.
Okay. And you went to that location, and what was your first step once you arrived there?
After we parked, we spoke with the homeowner.
Okay. Did you go to was he outside, or did you go knock on the door?
He was in the garage, I believe.
Okay. What happened after that? You walked up to him, introduced yourself, and then what happened?
He advised us why he called and what area we should look at, and then we proceeded to process.
Okay. So did he walk kind of out to the area we saw in your video with you, or did he just kind of tell you that general area and you guys went on your own?
To be honest, I don't recall. I don't recall him walking with us. It was pretty obvious the area we were looking at.
Due to the large amounts of blood
Yes,
and the cord
yes,
and the clumps of hair
yes.
that were in the street and in the lawn
In the lawn, yes,
and the bobby pins that were in the street.
yes,
And all of those items were essentially along the curb in front of Mr. Peterson's house.
in the front lawn and on the curb and in the roadway, yes.
And as we saw some of those evidence flags and the image that showed those evidence flags, the items in the roadway kind of spread towards Mr. Dietrich's residence. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I don't think I'd agree with that.
Okay. Judge, may I just briefly approach to see the photos and the numbers?
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
So that's a side piece. Just give me those.
Good. Thank you. All right, so let's start here. Sergeant Detective Janke, what exhibit did I just hand you?
Number 70.
Okay. And what is that of again? What's that a picture of?
This is kind of an orientation photo. So we're looking eastbound from west of the residence.
Do you want that published?
Yes, I was just going to ask that, Judge.
Why don't we do that? Number 70? Let's get 70 up on the big screen.
So is that Exhibit 70 now on the big screen?
Yes.
And you said this was, did you say this was like an orientation shot?
It kind of orients you to the area, yes.
Okay, so I know you testified about this a little bit on direct, but looking at this photo, can you again orient us to the area?
So I'm, the person who's taking the photo is standing to the west of the Peterson residence, looking eastbound on Berkeley.
So if you were to go on the or let me just ask you this, on the bottom right of that photograph, it appears that that's kind of a longer grassy area.
That's correct.
And then where the grass gets shorter after that, presumably that's the beginning of Mr. Peterson's yard that he just mowed?
Yes.
Okay. And that long grassy area, do you recall if that was present on both sides of the road?
There was some grassy area.
Monica, if
Oh,
you,
I'm so sorry.
microphone down there. All right.
And is that because when you're coming east on Berkeley, as this is facing, this image kind of captures the beginning of that neighborhood? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you testified earlier that that tackle box and cardboard box, that's the area where larger portions of the blood was found. Is that correct?
Correct.
Judge, may I approach just to look at the other exhibits?
Go right ahead.
And Detective Sergeant Janke, this is exhibit number what?
71.
Could I ask that 71 be put on the projector?
It will. Why don't we just say, if you reference any photo or any exhibit, it'll be displayed on the screen.
Thank you, Judge. Detective Sergeant Janke, is that exhibit 71 as you've seen it up on the
Yes.
screen now? Okay. And I believe you said each one of those flags corresponds to kind of a separate piece of evidence that was identified.
That's correct.
And can you tell what those flags go up to numerically?
16.
Okay. Okay, so there were 16 separate pieces of evidence collected along that curb.
There was one flag that was missing from that pack, so that would have been flag number 12. So it would have been 15 items just in that area that were collected.
Okay, so that's, again, we're in front of the Petersons' residence, across from the Dietrich's residence.
It would have been just to the west of Dietrich's residence.
Okay.
It's not directly across the street, but just to the west.
And are you aware that this location was later determined to be the murder scene of Nicole Vanderheiden?
Yes,
And I believe you testified earlier that while you were here, some members of I think you referred to it as like the reconstruction team arrived?
I requested recon.
Okay. And they have various measuring devices and things that they can use to measure distance between items and things of that nature, right?
They do.
And do you recall that recon team was able to determine that this scene was 118 feet from Dietrich's front door?
I never saw the measurements.
Okay.
I never saw any of that data, so.
Sergeant Detective Janke, can I please have you look at exhibit number 78 and ask to have that on the board as well? May I approach with exhibit 78?
Certainly.
Is this exhibit 78?
Yes.
And I believe those previous flags we looked at ended at number 16 with one of the flags, number 12, I think, missing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what are the numbers on these flags that you can see?
17, 18, and 19.
And again, just by way of orientation, at this point, where are things? I guess orient us to this photograph, please.
This would also be looking eastbound down Berkeley, and the flags would be running in so flag number 19 would be the furthest flag west, and then 17 and 18 would be going east and north.
East and north towards Dietrich's house, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's actually, is that Dietrich's driveway kind of back behind the fire truck?
I believe so.
Not with, and just to be clear, not the one that you can actually see the garage, but just that end of the driveway there by the curb, that would be Dietrich's residence?
Correct.
Okay. May I ask what, I know you took that video, what exhibit number did that video receive? I believe it was 69, is that correct?
The video was 69.
Okay.
79 was the court.
Okay. With permission, Judge, whether we either, I believe we should probably use the DVD as that's the labeled exhibit. I do have a copy of the video on my computer as well on a separate hard drive, but I don't think we need to duplicate evidence. So is exhibit 69 currently with the clerk or is it with the state? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Scott, you believe the video that we showed before is accurate?
Yes.
Show it from the hard drive.
So you wish to play 69 again?
Yes. And
All right.
And I guess, Judge, I'll just ask to just be able to play it from my computer. It's the same video.
Well, any problem with that? I think we all agree it matters not what the source is, as long as it accurately depicts the scene. So go ahead, Attorney Stebbins.
Thank you.
Will it give you play without audio?
Yes. Okay, and I'm not going to play the whole video again, but Sergeant Detective Janke, does this seem familiar to you as being the beginning of the video?
Yes.
And I'm just going to play a few seconds here. So this is, again, the Peterson residence, and you're in the street where most of that evidence was collected.
Correct.
And then you can watch on screen with me, but I'm just going to go forth towards the end of this video. And as we saw the first time, I know you kind of get up close and zoom in on the various pieces of evidence. Is that correct?
Correct.
So just for the record, the video right now is stopped at 19 seconds in. And all right, I stopped it at 3:13. Can you see that on the screen, Sergeant Detective Janke? That I stopped the video at approximately 3 minutes and 13 seconds into it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to press play, and I hope it catches up, and we'll just let that play. Okay, so would you agree we're still looking at the Peterson residence at this point?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to press play again, this time at 3 minutes and 14 seconds. I just stopped the video at 3 minutes and 18 seconds. So Sergeant Janke, would this image from your video effectively show the distance from where the majority of that evidence was collected to the Dietrich residence?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you testified that after this evidence collection, you did go inside the Dietrich residence prior to the search warrant to clear the scene.
The search warrant had been signed already, so we were advised that the search warrant was signed, and then we went to clear the residence.
So when you went in, you weren't like executing the search warrant per se, you were just making sure the scene was clear so that it was preserved for when the search warrant was executed.
That's correct.
Okay. How did you get into the Dietrich residence?
Some of the officers attempted to get in by way of that door that you're looking at, the service door, which is on the west side.
This door right
That's
here?
correct.
Okay.
And we couldn't find an access in any other way. There were no windows. That door was locked. There were no windows that were open, so they ended up breaching that door.
What does that mean?
They forced entry.
Through that service door that we just pointed at?
Correct.
And were you with them when they breached it?
Yes.
Do you remember if you were, did you actually kick down the door, so to speak?
I did not.
Okay. Were you one of the first detectives inside or first personnel inside?
Sergeant Tilley and I cleared the residence, so we were both in Tyvek suits, and we were the only two that I'm aware of that actually entered the residence.
And I believe you testified to this already, but immediately upon entering the garage, you detected a strong odor of chemicals. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that strong odor of chemicals to you seems similar to the odor of cleaning agents.
Correct.
And that strong odor that you immediately recognized stayed with you and stayed strong on both the first and the second floor of the residence.
Yes.
So you did go through the first floor of the residence?
The entire residence
Okay, so you were also on the second floor
and the basement.
and the basement, and that smell essentially permeated the residence?
No, I didn't detect anything in the basement.
Okay, but it was strong on the first and second floors.
Yes.
So when you go, in looking at this photo of the Dietrich residence, you already said that you went in through the service door, which we've identified. And looking at this image, it appears that up and to the right of the garage door, there's a series of essentially 3.5 windows. Do you see where I'm talking about?
Up and to the right.
Right in
I
that
see
area?
3. Okay, on the second floor?
Yes, so those are the second floor windows?
Yes.
And those two windows on the right, these ones right here, those are the windows of the master bedroom, is that correct?
Possibly, to be honest, I don't recall what the layout of the inside of the house was.
Okay.
I generally remember the first floor, but I wouldn't be able to tell you.
So you don't remember going up the stairs?
I do. I remember clearing the residence, but I don't remember exactly what the layout was.
Okay.
I never mapped that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last thing that you said.
I never mapped the inside of the residence.
Okay. But you did go through the whole residence.
Yes.
And I believe, as I said earlier, you have extensive experience, extensive training in picking up on what sort of objects you might be looking for
Yes.
when investigating the scene.
Yes.
What sort of substances you might be looking for,
Correct.
what sorts of odors,
Right.
and that's why you made note of that strong chemical smell that was suspicious to you.
Yes. Well, it was notable. I don't know if it was suspicious, but it was notable.
I believe you would say that it's suspicious in light of the overall appearance of the residence, meaning when you went through the residence, it didn't appear to be very tidy.
It wasn't tidy.
And given that it was not very tidy, that's what drew extra attention to the strong presence of chemicals.
Well, I mean, I noted that the inside of the residence wasn't tidy, but I didn't connect the two. The inside of the residence wasn't filthy. It was just sort of unkept, like children's things, like it had been lived in, clothing around and items around the house.
So it didn't really
It
look,
wasn't neat and tidy.
it didn't look like it had just been cleaned.
No.
I have no further questions, thank you.
Redirect.
Detective Janke, are you aware of whether other officers or other agencies had already conducted a search on that residence prior to you entering it on May 23rd?
Prior to that date?
Correct.
You said searched, you just went in.
I know that there was a search warrant that was executed the day after, and I'm not certain whether there was a search prior.
You're not aware if Green Bay had already cleared that residence with a search warrant on the 22nd?
I was not there at that time, so I don't know for certain.
Any recross?
No, thank you.
Detective Sergeant Yaki, thank you. You step down and you're excused. Any other witnesses from the state? Sure, come on up. More witnesses this afternoon. There's one legal issue we have to take up. Why don't we send you out for about 10 minutes and then we'll reconvene for our last witness today.
All right.
But we are ready to have our last witness call today. Go ahead, Attorney Kerrigan-Mayers.
Thank you. The state at this time would call Mark Shield to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name and spell your last name, please.
Mark Shield, M-A-R-C-S-H-I-E-L-D.
Thank you.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm currently employed with the Brown County Sheriff's Office and presently assigned as a narcotics investigator with the Brown County Drug Task Force.
How long have you been with the Drug Task Force?
I've been assigned to the Drug Task Force since August of 2015.
And how long have you been a police officer?
I have been a police officer with the Brown County Sheriff's Office since May of 2013.
And did you have employment along those lines before that?
I did not.
Have you had any specialized training or education along those lines?
I have. I received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Elmhurst College in Illinois with a minor in communication studies. Following my degree, I received certification through the Law Enforcement Academy at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College.
Have you had further training with respect to investigation of crimes?
I have.
Can you give us some summary?
Specifically I've received on-the-job training in regards to investigating all sorts of crimes Specifically, I've received training in drug investigations, including death investigations involving drug overdoses.
And in your training with respect to investigating crimes, have you also had some training or on-the-job experience with respect to collecting evidence?
I have.
What type of training would that have been involved?
I attended a 2-week course through the Wisconsin Department of Justice where we were trained in evidence collection and handling, and I've also received on-the-job training in collecting evidence.
And what is your current title then?
My current title is a narcotics investigator and canine handler with the Drug Task Force.
As a canine handler, you do what?
I have a single-purpose police canine that is trained to detect the odor of drugs.
So you indicated that there are times in the last few years, with respect to your present duties, you still also assist in investigation of other crimes that are not drug-related. Is that correct?
I do.
And in that capacity, on May 21st of 2016, were you called or dispatched in response to the need for anything to be done?
I was.
Where were you dispatched to?
I was dispatched to the area of Hoffman Road and Bellevue Street for a report of a female body that had been located in a field.
And is that the village of Bellevue?
It is.
Is that Brown County, Wisconsin?
It is.
Did you respond to that scene?
I did.
Were there any other persons there when you arrived?
There were multiple deputies and investigators from the Brown County Sheriff's Office present.
Do you recall about what time you were dispatched?
I don't recall my exact time I was dispatched, however, I arrived at approximately 3:45 p.m.
Did you meet with any individuals or take any statements at that time?
I did.
Who directed you at that point?
Captain Dave Conrath was on scene directing certain responsibilities, and I conducted an interview.
And you arrive about 3:45 p.m.?
Correct.
How shortly thereafter were you taking a statement?
Probably within an hour or so.
Just taking a statement in general, how does that take place? Do you start writing right away, or do you talk to the person first?
I usually talk to them, figure out what they know, what had happened. After we've gathered that information, we will take a written statement from them. If they so wish, we will write the written statement in their words with our writing, and we will review the statement, verify it's true and accurate. Then the person that gave the statement will sign, and we'll make changes as necessary.
So you said they verify it's true or accurate. Do you give them the opportunity to read it, or do you read it to them?
Generally, I read the statement out loud unless they object and would like to read it on their own. But it's common practice for me personally to read it out loud back to them.
If they have problems with its accuracy, do you allow them to make changes?
I do.
And do they then actually sign those statements if they're willing to do so?
Yes.
On May 21st of 2016, with whom did you meet?
I met with Jacob Vincent.
Okay. And that was a young boy who was at the scene, is that correct?
Yes,
Did you speak to him?
I did.
And was he willing to give a statement?
He was.
Did you then accomplish it along the lines that you just mentioned?
Yes.
On that same date, at approximately 5:13 p.m., did you go to a different location?
I did.
Where did you go?
Went to 2329 Berkeley Road in the town of Ledgeview, Brown County, Wisconsin.
And were you with anyone?
I was with Sergeant Tracy Holschbach of the Brown County Sheriff's Office.
And did you have a different name at the time?
She did. It was Sergeant Tracy Steffens.
Did you arrive about 5:13 p.m.?
Yes,
And did you then both approach the residence?
we did.
Whose residence did you believe this to be?
Based on the information in the call, the residence was believed to be currently occupied or owned by Douglas Dietrich and Nicole Vanderheiden.
What type of call was it?
It was a missing person report.
So you both proceeded there. How did you approach?
We walked up to the front door, and we were let into the residence by Douglas's parents.
And do you remember their names?
I do not specifically.
Could have been Robert and Diane.
Yes,
And were there any other persons present?
there was. Douglas Dietrich was present, and Douglas's friend, Greg Matthew, was also present,
So,
in addition to their child, Dylan.
so all these persons were okay with you coming into the house?
They were.
Where did you go at that point in time?
We walked into the kitchen area where Sergeant Holschbach, then Sergeant Steffens, interviewed Douglas Dietrich, to take the complaint to the missing person report. And my primary responsibility was to relay any information back to other investigators to assist in either identifying the unknown female who had been located in the field at that time, or assist in finding the victim.
The unknown female in the field, did you ever approach that person?
I did not.
So you get dispatched to this different location with response to a report of a missing female.
Yes.
And at that point in time, did you make note of Doug Teacher's demeanor with you?
I did.
And what would you describe it as?
He seemed concerned.
Anything else?
He was concerned. He was worried. He
Okay.
appeared to be assisting us in trying to locate his missing girlfriend.
Mr. Greg Matthew was also present, is that correct?
He was.
What was his attitude?
He was more nervous than Douglas was. At one point, I stepped outside with Mr. Matthew, and he had smoked multiple cigarettes in a short period of time. So his demeanor was seemed to be more concerned than Douglas.
More concerned or more nervous?
He was nervous, correct.
Could it be just he needed a cigarette?
Could have been, yes.
So both of these gentlemen were willing to discuss things with you, and let's go with Sergeant Holschbach
Yes,
as far as names. Did you return to the kitchen then?
I did.
When you were looking at Douglas Dietrich, did you notice what he was wearing?
I did.
What type of shirt did he have on as far as length?
He had a short sleeve polo shirt, and he was wearing shorts.
Did you make a point of noticing both his arms and his legs at this point in time?
I did.
Did you notice any injuries?
I did not observe any injuries.
Were you also paying attention, knowing that a body had just been found, to the words that were used by Douglas Dietrich?
Absolutely. I knew that going to the scene, if Douglas were to refer to his missing girlfriend in the past tense, that would have been a huge red flag. And during our conversation with Douglas, he made no such reference to her in the past tense.
Is that something you've been trained to be on the lookout for in these type of situations?
Yes,
So, did Greg also seem concerned, though?
he did.
Did you both then go back into the residence after the cigarette break?
Yes.
Were you there in the kitchen the whole time, or did you go to other parts of the home?
I stepped outside with Gregory on at least one occasion, and then Douglas allowed us to walk into the garage with him as well.
Did you go into the garage with he and Sergeant Holschbach?
I did.
And he was agreeable to that taking place as well?
Yes.
The interview or the conversation with Douglas Dietrich, did that mainly take place in the kitchen then?
It did.
Were people around the table?
Yes.
Did he agree to give a written statement?
Yes.
While you were in the home at any point in time, did you notice any unusual odors or any notable odors?
I did not.
And you're there at about 5:13 p.m.?
Yes.
How long were you there?
I
When
believe
did
I
you
was.
leave? Sorry.
I believe I was there until approximately 8 o'clock.
Did you leave with Sergeant Holschbach?
I did.
On that same date, did you then meet up with any other persons for taking statements?
I did.
Who would that have been?
I met up with Dallas Kennedy at her place of employment, Ogun Restaurant.
Did she agree to talk to you?
She did.
And was it the same type of situation? You asked her what was going on, what she knew, and you listened to her account first of all?
Yes,
Did she agree to give a written statement on that date?
she did.
Did you give her the opportunity to read it, or did you read it to her?
I would have read it to her unless she insisted on just reading it herself.
But she was cooperative with you, is that correct?
She was.
Was she forthcoming, or did she seem to have problems remembering what information she was providing?
She seemed forthcoming.
Sir, I'm just going to ask you, can you identify Exhibit 85?
This is the written statement that I obtained from Dallas Kennedy.
And in fact, how many pages is it?
It is 4 pages.
Now, is her signature anywhere on that document?
Her signature?
Yes.
Yes. Her signature is on each of the 4 pages.
And would she have been allowed to read all 4 pages, or did you read all 4 to her?
Either, like I said, I would have read them aloud to her, or if she insisted on reading it on her own, we would have covered all 4 pages and reviewed it for accuracy.
So, did she agree to sign all 4 pages?
She did.
And in fact, her signature's on all 4, is that correct?
Yes.
At the bottom, does it indicate that it's true and correct?
Correct.
And that's just on the first page, is that correct?
Correct.
When you were speaking with her, at some point, did she indicate that there had been some angry texts from Nikki to Doug?
Yes.
That she'd learned of that?
Yes.
And did she say to you, it seemed like Doug was trying to calm her down?
She did.
Did she say that to you verbally in the first as you were taking information from her?
Yes.
And then, in fact, is that actually in her written statement?
Yes.
On May 26th, did you meet with any individuals?
Yes.
Who would that have been?
On May 26th,
About 2 a.m.?
about 2 a.m., I met with I do not recall who I met on the 26th.
Was there an Aaron Kalinsky that you met with at some point in time?
Yes, I met with Aaron Kalinsky on the 21st, I believe.
Oh, I apologize.
Or it was the 22nd, that same night, at approximately 2 a.m.
Okay. Oh, okay, maybe I misstated. So May 22nd
Correct.
at 2 a.m.
Yes.
So early morning hours.
Yes.
And where did you meet up with Mr. Kalinsky?
At his residence.
Did he agree to speak with you?
He did.
And again, did you talk to him?
Yes.
And did he give a written statement?
He did.
Did he also agree to a phone search?
He did.
And did Dallas agree to a phone search?
Yes.
So at this point, everyone was actually being very cooperative, is that correct?
Yes.
On that same date at 12 p.m., did you meet up with a Matt Wilkinson?
I did.
And did you take a statement from him?
Yes.
Moving on to May 23rd of 2016, did you again meet up with Greg Matthew?
I did.
Would this have been about 11:15?
Yes.
And would that be 11:15 a.m.?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of going to meet up with Mr. Matthew at this time?
The purpose was to collect clothing from Mr. Matthew and his vehicle.
Did he agree to hand over his clothing?
He did.
What type of clothing were you after?
The clothing that he was wearing the night of Nicole's disappearance.
So starting May 20th into the 21st?
Yes.
And he did hand over those materials?
Yes.
Was there any other evidence or any other items you were requesting from him?
His vehicle.
And did he allow that to take place?
Yes.
So you actually took his car?
Yes.
For what reason?
We were potentially examining his vehicle for any evidence.
So your department, you assisted in the collection of that evidence to be dealt with others to detect who would go through it, is that correct?
Correct, for the processing of the vehicle.
Thank you. So that'd be the 23rd. Again, on the 23rd, did you do anything with respect to neighborhoods?
Yes.
What'd you do?
With other individuals from my department, we conducted a neighborhood canvass around the area of 2329 Berkeley Road to speak with neighbors and see if they potentially heard or saw anything that night.
Now, on May 24, 2016, were you involved in assisting with the execution of a search warrant?
I was,
And where was that?
at 2329 Berkeley Road.
Nicole and Doug Dietrich's residence?
Yes.
And did you follow a normal protocol with respect to entering the residence and wearing the required clothing?
Yes.
What did you have on?
Booties on the bottom of the shoes to make sure you don't disturb any of the evidence, and then I was wearing latex gloves as well, as were others serving the search warrant.
On this occasion, did you notice any odors with respect to the residence?
I did not.
Okay. And anytime you entered, were you on the alert for anything unusual such as odors?
Yes,
If there were such unusual observations, you would have noted them?
I would have.
On this occasion, did you search the whole house, or what parts did you go into?
Personally, I was in every room of the home. The entire house was searched by the personnel assisting with the search warrant. My primary function was the evidence custodian, taking custody of the evidence that was located during the search warrant, maintaining that custody until later logging it in to evidence at the Brown County Sheriff's Office.
And that's the way it worked. Others might find something, but they would bring your attention to it. The positioning would be located, photographs would be taken, and you'd see to its collection.
Correct.
And then those items would be transferred into evidence.
Yes,
Was some marijuana found in the home on this occasion?
there was some.
Was there a pipe also found?
Yes.
Could you describe the pipe?
The pipe was a ceramic pipe with some black burnt residue,
How big?
maybe 3 to 4 inches.
Did you take possession of any clothing items?
I did.
Did you take collection of a green shirt?
Yes.
Do you remember which way you entered? The residence, I'm sorry.
Through the garage initially.
Yeah. If I may approach again.
Go right ahead.
I'm just going to ask you to look at exhibits 80 through 84. And unfortunately, we don't have these on the overhead, but if you could just tell me once you've had a chance to look, do you recognize what each of those are?
I do recognize them. They are photographs taken of the garage by the Wisconsin Crime Lab during the search warrant. And the fourth photo is from the master bedroom.
Which photo is that? What number? Exhibit number?
84.
84.
Sir.
Thank you. So with respect to the first one, number 80 is the first one, is that correct?
Yes.
Could you describe what that is?
This photo is taken from the garage floor. There's a marker number 1. And that indicates an area where the crime lab had sprayed luminol in the garage, and this was one of the highlighted areas.
And I'm sorry, what is luminol?
Luminol is a chemical that highlights multiple things, one of them being blood. My understanding of luminol is it highlights not exclusively human blood, things like animal blood could also be highlighted.
And you weren't actually the one spraying it, but you observed that taking place?
I did not observe the spraying, but I came into the garage and other areas of the home shortly after there had been sprayed.
Is there a yellow tag also indicated there?
Yes,
What number is on that tag?
number 1.
And was that also done by the crime lab to designate a point?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, then the next photo?
The next photo is a close-up of the same area.
And that would be 81, would it be?
81, exhibit 81, yes.
Thank you. So that's the same, just a close-up of what's in 80, is that correct?
Yes.
And then what, 82?
82 is more of an overview of the entire garage, showing markers 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. And then 83?
83 is a mid-level shot of marker number 3.
And then the next exhibit, please?
The next exhibit is a photograph of a hamper in the master bedroom.
And what number is that, sir?
That is exhibit number 84.
And what clothing is being shown there?
This is believed to be the shirt that Douglas Dietrich was wearing on the night of Nicole's disappearance.
Now, you're pointing to the photograph. Are you sure to the striped shirt that's on the right side of the photograph in the hamper?
Correct.
Did you take possession of that shirt?
I did.
Now, you've indicated, what was significant about the garage photos, those stains? Was anyone swabbing those areas?
The areas were swabbed by the crime lab. I took custody of the swabs.
So you took the swabs that had the stains, and you took possession of those and kept track of those for evidence with respect to the garage, is that correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, again, I apologize. We don't have those available on the projector. If we could do it the old-fashioned way and actually just publish to the jury so they can get a better look.
Okay, just want to make sure, these are photos 80 through 84, is that right?
And I would move them into evidence and ask that they be received, but then ask that they be published.
Okay, any objections subject to cross, exhibits 80 through 84?
No, thank you.
All right. Exhibits 80, 81, 82, 83, and 84 are received, and they may be published to the jury at this time.
Your Honor.
All right, you may continue.
The state has no further questions. Thank
No
you very
further
much.
questions? Cross-examination?
Yes, thank you. Investigator Shield, when you were searching the 2329 Berkeley Road, who was in charge of this search?
The search was coordinated by Captain Conrath.
So he would tell other officers kind of what their roles are, like you were the evidence collector and then maybe different rooms and things like that?
Correct.
Did you walk through the entire house?
I did.
And do you remember that the master bedroom is on the second floor?
Yes.
And then when you walked in the master bedroom, do you remember which way those windows are facing?
I do.
Which way?
The windows are facing to the south.
So that would be towards Berkeley Road?
Yes.
Investigator, I'm going to hand you.
Excuse me, Counsel, may I see what you're doing? Thank you. I see the number. As you get closer. It's 86.
I'm going to hand you Exhibit 86. Can you tell me what that's a photo of?
This is a photo of 2329 Berkeley Road, which appears to be taken from the street.
And you could tell that's what it is because it has the address right above the garage?
Yes.
Judge, I would ask that this exhibit be admitted.
Any objection to 86?
No, Your
86 is received.
Judge, I would ask that publish.
Let's have it published to the jury.
I can put it on my computer.
No, let's do it the easy way. We'll put it on the big screen.
Investigator, can you, looking at that photo where the mouse is that where the windows would be for the master bedroom?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you remember when you were doing the evidence collection, did you take possession of any drain traps?
No.
So no drain traps from any sinks, correct?
Correct.
Did you take collection of any drain traps from within the pipes, like within the plumbing that would catch anything that would go through?
No.
What about the washer or dryer?
Nothing was collected from the washer and dryer.
And then I want to go back to the start of your involvement in this case. You responded to Hoffman Road where the body was found?
Yes.
And do you remember what time that was at?
I arrived at approximately 3:45 p.m.
And were there a lot of other officers present?
There were.
Is it a pretty big scene in terms of squads, roadblocks, things like that?
Yes.
And the missing person report, that didn't come in until after that scene, after that large presence?
Correct.
And then when you eventually went to, with Sergeant Holschbach, at the time Sergeant Steffens, to take the missing persons report, did Doug appear tired at that time?
He appeared a combination of maybe tired, but not knowing Doug prior to that, I didn't know if it was normal or not.
Judge, we have no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, thank you very much.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And you are excused. And that's the final witness for today. Is that right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got done a little bit earlier. I just want to mention something that right before lunch, the issue was whether or not questions could be heard. I was led to believe maybe there was a question at some point if the jurors could ask questions, and just we never really addressed it during voir dire, but the practice here is not for jurors to ask questions, and it's primarily because you might ask questions that are objectionable, and that's really the duty of the attorneys, the job of the attorneys. Yes, the judge can ask a question or two to clarify things, but even I might want to ask questions, and I don't, because it's the attorney's case, all right? We're done for today. Again, I appreciate your patience as always. I know you've been an attentive jury. I trust it's going to continue. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 8:30. Do not talk to anyone about the case or read any articles about this case. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30. Have a good evening.
Rise.